hanging out with Henrietta.
Thank you for coming down to hang out with me today. Please introduce yourself.
Oh, well, my name is Marc Adebesin.
And what do you do?
I'm a filmmaker, a director, and a producer.
So, when did you first decide that making films was going to be your vocation or your passion and your chosen career?
I've always wanted to create things. I would always look at myself as a creative person. And I think as a filmmaker, if you do not have that passion to be creative on set or to be able to create from your own story to your own visual representation, I wouldn't want to look upon you as a filmmaker, but you also have to look at the fact that there are different elements to filmmaking.
Okay.
It's a different journey for everybody.
And when did your journey in particular start?
I would say 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So up until 3 years ago, was it just a dream in the pipeline?
Oh yeah, it was. Because in Nollywood, if you want to make a film, it always has to do with finance. So obviously finance, being an independent filmmaker, it's always tough.
Okay.
When you're investing your own finance into a film, and you always have to ask yourself, can you actually do it?
Okay.
First question, do you have the financial muscle to do it? And what quality and what standard do you want to create? So that's quite important, and it's kind of like what the Bible says when it says, what manner of man wants to build a house and doesn't first of all calculate its cost? So finance is the biggest obstacle for any filmmaker in the Nollywood industry, to be specific.
So would you say there was like a crucial, like a critical point in your life where you thought you ticked all those boxes and you were just going to jump into the deep end? Because we can linger on things for a while.
Yeah.
We can say we're going to do something, you can plan, you can prep, and there's just a point in your life, like I saw a little post on your Instagram where you just jump. When did you just jump?
I would say the first time I created was a short film.
Okay.
And that was a learning curve in its own right.
Okay.
And
was it well received? Was there a lot of respect you gained after that?
We had over
people contacting
16,000 views on YouTube. So it was well received. It won an award. It won Zafar Award for the best short film.
And this is the Thai.
This is Tied Up. Yes.
And that's 2016.
Yeah. One of the reasons why it's always good to do something short first is because when you're doing a full feature film, if you make a mistake, your regret is always going to be bigger.
Can I just have to ask, in regards to the Tied Up,
yeah.
Why did the Oyibo guy have to have like an African accent? Is that something Nollywood producers want, or Nollywood audience wants, should I say? The guy, the way he was talking.
Fares is
from the British point of view.
He grew up here. He's Lebanese, and he is he's a director and he's an actor. So I'm not sure he's directed before. I think his music videos he's directed his music video, but directing a film. He's gone back to Nigeria to follow his acting passion at the moment, and fingers crossed we'll be getting something from him soon.
Have you lived all your life between Nigeria and the UK, or mostly where?
I spent a couple of years in Germany,
Okay.
but predominantly I've lived in between UK and Nigeria, Lagos to be specific.
So that's why would you say that's why Nollywood was definitely the route you was going to take and say not Hollywood?
Hollywood.
Or is it still a dream in the pipeline?
I would always want to create a film that can cut across all industries. I mean, when you do that, I think that's what I would call the holy grail.
Okay.
Where you cut across all creeds. Typical example is the Black Panther. Is a film that was well received by the African audience, and it was well received by the Hollywood audience as well. So creating a film like that, it takes planning. It takes you understanding the best time to release it and how you want the audience to receive it. So it's a big sort of mix and match.
Because when we look, so if you take something like Black Panther, for example, when we look at Black Panther, you would see that just as a really good movie.
Yeah.
Okay, we will say, it's Hollywood, but just internationally, it'll just be seen as a good movie, produced and made by Americans. Do you want Nollywood now to kind of leave the kind of in terms of when you make your movie, it not to be seen as a Nigerian movie and just a good movie? Do you want Nollywood to get to that standard?
I think Nollywood it's just for me. I think it's just a matter of time.
Okay.
Nollywood will get to that stage.
Okay.
But just like Hollywood and just like Bollywood, where you had the Life of Pi, you know, winning an Oscar and all that, you would always find one or two films that would just cross over and come back. So, as Africans, we create African films for us, by us. So.
But Nollywood's received by so many people.
It is.
It's massive in the Caribbean.
Oh,
you see it in their hotels, on their TV.
Yes.
So even though we're making, it's like Americans. I don't think when Americans make movies, they think, oh, there's possibly going to be Africans that watch it or Asians watch it. They just make it, and we all just enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I think Nollywood already has that.
Oh yeah, we do. We have that. We have that international acclamation as it stands. I mean, in terms of the amount we generate commercially every year on year, I think we have just about overtook Bollywood as it stands.
So we're the top now, would you say?
No. We're not yet there. We're not yet at the top. I think the quality has it's improved tremendously over the years, and I think it's just going to get better. And I think it's just a matter of time before we do a film that will cross over and be internationally accepted across the globe.
Would you say some of the things that maybe holding Nollywood back is the amount of movies they turn out, not always at the best quality? Would you say?
Well, we're talking about quality and quantity.
Yeah, that's.
Well, yes, those are two extreme spectrums, but you also have to look at the nature of the fact that majority of the films, in terms of percentage, are done by independent filmmakers.
Okay.
It's a very risky industry when you invest your personal finance, because the biggest challenge Nollywood faces today is distributorship.
Okay.
You know, being able to distribute your film is tough. Yeah.
How do most people go about distributing? I mean,
well,
now with Netflix and stuff.
Well, you can't just.
Is that changing a bit
now?
now?
Looking at Netflix, you can't just approach Netflix. You have to go through an aggregator.
Okay.
You have to go through a distributor who would pick up that film from you.
Because we've seen Nollywood now.
Oh yeah, it is.
So we're breaking those barriers.
We are, but in terms of power, in terms of quantity, I think Iroko is still the biggest biggest platform for Nollywood films.
Yeah. And you have one of your films on
Yes,
there?
I do.
Part of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
And in regards to what would you say? Nollywood in London, Nollywood in the UK, different? Because what do you refer to that? Nollywood UK, Nollywood.
Well, I still call it Nollywood because you don't go to Paris and say Paris.
No, but they've got it's got a slightly different feel to it. No, you don't feel like the Three Kings, for example. That's like.
Yeah, I noticed people who enjoy that film were actually kids.
Younger people,
of this particular generation, they actually felt the story.
Yeah.
And I found it a bit shocking. It was more accepted by people here in the UK than it was in Nigeria because, you know, typical example was my first feature film. Yeah.
Diaspora.
Typical example is my first feature film, Talking Dolls. Yeah. I noticed that it was. Thank you.
You might have seen me on the red carpet for that as well.
Yes. If you notice, there was a bit of feedback regarding how the audience interpreted a lady being chased out of the house. I mean, in UK, in winter, if a guy chases a lady out of the house, the way you think, the way your judgment takes effect is different. In Nigeria, you're always going to find an uncle, an auntie who will take you in. It's very easy. But your best mate kicks you out without you having a job. You just want to.
That's some second-class citizen
exactly.
business.
So it's a very tough call.
But I think
you understanding how the audience will accept that as a story. Oh yeah. It was one or two things that people pulled me up and said, how come the lady was pushed out of the house and which could have gone to an uncle and an aunt. I said, when you are a migrant and you live in a country that's not your fatherland or your motherland, and you
don't really have any family, that
core, you'll find out that you just move into the nearest guy's place, and obviously whatever decisions that are made there, you have to live with it.
Yeah. And how did they receive that storyline, the Talking Dolls storyline? Because it's even talking about abuse and stuff in our community and our culture, things like that swept under the carpet. To actually see it on a big screen, it was in cinemas in Nigeria as well.
Yes,
So,
it was.
you know, people must be talking a lot about
people loved it. People loved it.
Mark's pushing the boundaries. He's a risk taker.
Yes.
Because I wouldn't have done that type of thing, right?
Why?
You know, I'm talking about other producers may have been thinking, well, I wouldn't, or directors. That's not a storyline.
Well,
and it's not a storyline I would have seen in a lot of Nollywood movies, to be honest.
Yes, because I noticed that a couple of people were not willing to push, comfortable and willing to push the true reflection of who we are and what we are.
And what happens in our community.
Yeah, what happens, because you would find out that it's not as if rape and all that doesn't, and child molestation doesn't happen here in European countries. It does. You will find out that we curtail it very well. I was talking to one of my scriptwriters when I got to Nigeria, and she was telling me that, if a guy invites you to his hotel room and you make the mistake of going in there and something happens, you can't go to the police station and report. I said, yes, you can. And she was like, Mr. Mark, no, it doesn't work like that. If you walk into the police station, the first thing the police officer is going to pull you up on is, what were you doing in this hotel room in the first place? And they just shove you aside. I said, but that is wrong. When a man forces himself on a woman, it's called rape. And I don't see any reason why you can't pull an individual up on that and report that individual. I think we have very good laws in Africa, but the biggest thing is implementing those laws is the biggest challenge we're facing at the moment. And I think the mindset of our leaders and the lawmakers and the guys who have to implement the law, the mindset needs to be changed and retuned. I think there's a lot of training that needs to go into that. There's a lot of knowledge that needs to be passed to those people that handle those core pillars in our communities in Africa.
Can you see yourself making a quite political movie, a movie that will maybe rustle some political people?
Yeah, I think, yes.
I
think if you're a filmmaker like myself that hasn't yet made a big name for himself,
and you've already pushed the boundaries.
I'm pushing the boundaries, but if you make a film that makes a commercial impact, and you now make a film that now makes a commercial statement, typical Africans will accept you more. It's just
your name will be on everyone's.
Yeah, it's kind of like you say, money talks and bullshit takes a hike. So if you do it like that in that order, you're being very strategic. I mean, the typical African audience, they are not forgiving. You know, you do something and they don't like it, they will tell you.
Okay. Yeah. And would that have an effect on them watching your other movies?
Not necessarily. The funny thing about the typical African audience is, if they like something, they tell you straight they like it. If they don't like it, they tell you they don't like it. They don't mind words when it comes to things like that.
So Mark, we've talked about the tied up, Talking Dolls,
and the Accidental Spy, the Three Kings.
So what's next?
Well, the alter date is it's going to be in the cinema on the 19th of April.
UK,
in the next couple of
Nigeria,
days.
both?
Nigeria.
Nigeria.
Yeah, we've done the premiere here in UK already.
I didn't get a shout out for that, guys.
Sorry. Yeah, but once that hits the cinema, I'm going to study what the response to that will be for the Nigerian audience. That's one.
And how do you tend to go about doing that?
You're gonna get. I mean, we live in a digital age where people are gonna put their comments out on social media, and from Snapchat to Twitter, and people who know me personally that I've not even met physically, they will reach out. I mean, my last film, they did reach out, you know, because my phone number is there. They would always reach out and send me a WhatsApp message about what they felt could have been improved, because a film can always be better.
And how are you with taking criticism about your work? Do you take it pretty well? Or?
Yes, I do. 100%. 100%.
You see how we looked at me with those pause?
No. I take criticism because I'm a business analyst and I'm also a project manager. So if I do not take criticism, I'm not willing to grow.
Okay.
So I'm an individual who wants to grow. And I'm not going to... I've only been to Nigeria twice in the last 16 years. I'm not going to sit here and tell you understand the Nigerian audience. No,
Oh,
I'm
have
still
you?
studying the
Oh
Nigerian
my
audience.
gosh, only been twice in the last
Yeah,
16 years.
yeah.
And
And
you're
both times were last year.
So what can we expect from now?
Well, I've got 2 films I'm working on
Mm-hmm.
at the moment. One is a dance movie,
Okay.
which has your typical elements of love, betrayal,
Mm-hmm.
passion, and regrets. I've got that in the pipeline. The script is ready,
Mm-hmm.
and I've also got another film.
Typical Nigerian storylines.
Well,
Love, passion, betrayal. No, they're very like Nollywood,
yeah.
right?
Well,
they're very like Nollywood
your typical
ingredients.
Yes.
They're Nollywood ingredients.
But one ingredient you and I have missed out is comedy. If you study typical success stories, as commercial success stories of Nollywood films, you find there's always that element of comedy. You've got, if you go on Wikipedia and go and check, top 50, top 60 grossing films in Nigeria, you find that a good 80% chunk of them are predominantly comedies.
Life's hard out there. We need to laugh sometimes, right?
You need to laugh. Look at it this way. Your typical audience who go to the cinema, there's going to be a paradigm shift soon, but they want to go to the cinema, sit down there, watch something that's going to make them laugh, something that's going to make them happy. You have your typical guy who does your typical 9 to 5, he's stressed out. He just wants to go and unwind and relax and laugh. If you put up a comedy show for an hour, and you put a Nollywood film an hour, and say, tickets, guys, come and get it. You'll find out that you get a sold-out hall for the comedy show. That's because we want to laugh. It's who we are. We want to laugh.
Have you tried to approach any big comedians to be featured in
there's going forward, I think my next 2 films, there's always going to be an element of comedy, because as a filmmaker... You see that as a collaboration, try and get some of the comedians? I could get 1 or 2 comedians, but I would prefer a situation where I have comedy incorporated into my script. One of the films I watched at the cinema was Alakada, done by Tony Animaku, and I sat down there looking at it from 2 perspectives. One, the technical perspective, and the commercial perspective. I mean, no disrespect to Tony Animaku, she's a great filmmaker. And I found out, looking at it, I could tell myself, it's almost as if every single scene, there was a cautious effort to add an element of comedy to it to make sure the audience laugh. And I sat down there asking myself, okay, let's see how this film is going to go. And months in the cinema, it made over 70 million naira. Wow. And it was a film, from my knowledge, it was about 5 million. So looking at this commercial success of that's huge. So if you can, I'm not saying if you use that strategy it's always going to work for you, but she used it well, and she used it brilliantly. So it's not like we don't appreciate quality, we do. But our audience, we put comedy above quality for now. But there is going to be that paradigm shift. Typical example is King of Boys, that was done by Kemi Adetiba. That was a film that oozed quality end to end. There was nothing comedy about it. It was a very serious film. It made over 300 million in the cinema. So there's going to be a time where comedy is going to take the back seat, and then serious films are now going to take their stand in the main frame of good, successful stories in Nollywood. But for now, we're not yet there. My prayer is to see a government that would fix a lot of social ills in our community, in Africa. And if those are fixed, that paradigm shift would... It's going to be a gradual process where filmmakers, serious films are going to be more embraced.
I remember Omatola, I watched a video, a little snippet with Omatola at the end of 2018, and she was talking about stuff that's things that are stopping investment of Nollywood movies, even international, from American, so on and so forth, people coming over, seeing kind of the social ills, the climate of the country, and not feeling that Nigeria is at a place where they can invest. And it was really sad, because she mentioned things like the area boys and investment, so on and so forth, and it makes you think that, is the government holding back an industry that could be taken to another level, or you would say no? I
wouldn't necessarily say yes, and I wouldn't say no.
I'll
tell you what the challenges are. The challenges, one, the distribution. That's one. 2, you have a country of over 190 million people, chaotic people, and you find you have roughly 30 cinemas. It's not going to cut the mustard. It's not. We don't have enough cinemas. Now, there are two things. There are two ends to it. You find out that even here in the UK, people don't go out to watch films in the cinema like we used to.
Oh, but it's price. I think it's price of cinema as well, and how changes have happened in regards to Netflix, stream.
Well,
there's always you can.
That's the advantage of living in the diaspora. We have broadband readily available.
Yeah, things have changed
at home and everywhere.
Yeah.
Now, Nigeria and African countries generally we're not yet there. Now, because we're not yet there, people are more pushed to go and watch films in cinema. Now, some go for the hype. Some take their to-be spouse or girlfriend or fiancé or whatever to the cinema. I've had guys who call me up and say, I've taken 5 girls to go and watch wedding party, and I ask why. I say, they were all different girls, so
Oh my
so
God.
there's always it's an
there's
end.
Always one.
There's always one.
Always
So there's always an end to why people go and watch specific films. So one of the few people that I would credit with the way and manner in which she strategizes and pushes is Moabudu. She is very strategic with the way she packaged a media platforms to push these films. She's very smart about the type of storyline she also pushes. She knows what the audience wants, and she gives it to them. So for me as a filmmaker, there's always going to be a time in my own specific career that I'm going to just say, damn the consequences. I'm just going to give the audience exactly what they want.
Okay.
And if it works, it works.
But you have to stay true to yourself. At
the
same
of
time,
course.
And as well as
of course.
I'm seeing in general the spotlight is on Africa now with the music, the fashion, the food. I remember growing up here in the 80s, it wasn't fashionable to be African. That was like embedded in us from cultural culture we received from our mums and our dads from home, but you hear it in the streets, you go to schools, you go to, it's absolutely everywhere. How is Nollywood keeping up with that hunger and that the African flavour?
Well, to be honest, when Nollywood started, people just look at Nigerians as ritualists or people who always and all that. So that paradigm has changed with the way they look at Africans now, because they see that those guys know what they're doing. So the music, that's one of the reasons why I want to shoot a dance film as one of my next films, because I'm looking at a way where I can infuse Afrobeat into it and bring the Afrobeat audience into the cinema to come and watch a dance movie.
Because they've already kind of seen some of the actors, because you have had Alex Okubo in some...
Alex Okubo.
Sorry.
Alex Okubo.
Alex Okubo.
Yeah, go on.
He was in Yemi Alade's video.
Yes.
Looking for My Johnny. There was another love one she did. I can't remember it off my head. So we're starting to see that partnership already.
Oh, yeah.
So you want it done your way.
Yes.
And could you see like a soundtrack happening?
Yeah, I have a very close friend of mine, Emeka Wanchuku, who's in Canada. He's already creating beats for the film as we speak. But one of my strategy is to use as many Afrobeats songs that are good enough for the film. So I'm going to be getting their rights from the artists that own them, get the rights and be able to infuse that. Yeah. And, obviously, the soundtrack is definitely going to come out of that. That's for sure.
And I think it's gonna, I don't know what you think, but it will see a coming together of tribes, which you say, because isn't it fair to say, I don't know, I could totally be wrong, but when I look at the whole, even the big Afrobeat artists blowing now, there's a lot of Yoruba, right? Is there a lot of...
There's Yoruba, there's Igbo.
But there's, the big ones, you took at Davido, Wiz, Kid-Tiwa, there's a lot of Yorubas, and it seems to have that feel in regards to the Afrobeat and the music industry in terms of Nigeria, and in terms of Nollywood, I see the Igbos seem to be quite fronting and quite. Am I going into dangerous territory? I don't know. But what I'm saying is, isn't that a nice collaboration if we could bring the. I'm just saying, historical ills within the tribes and stuff are still always there, and there's still always tribal tension, wouldn't you say?
Well, I spoke to.
I'm just saying it's a nice way of bringing people together.
Well, I'm not going to sit down here and lie to you and say I've not heard it. I've not seen it with my own eyes, but I have heard.
I've heard it too. That's what
I've heard Yoruba actors who have said, "Oh, there is that cultural divide where the Igbos want to be, using just the Igbos to do films and the Yorubas want to." But I've not seen it.
Okay.
And if I've not seen something, it would be very ill of me to speak about it.
Okay.
I can't form an opinion
about it.
But I've heard.
But what I was trying to say, I don't know, I think I got a bit tongue tied, is that if we could bring the music industry coming together, wouldn't it be nice to kind of get rid of or move into a new era where we're not carrying that baggage and those type of.
Well, look at it this way. One of the reasons why it's going to be a bit challenging to bring musical artists into Nollywood is this. Now look at it this way. You're an actor and I sing.
Yeah. Well, I'm waiting for you to make me an actor still, Mark. Yes, I'm still waiting.
We'll get there. We'll get there. A typical Fowles who sings and he also acts. Yeah. He would sit down there and say, "You're calling me to come and act in a 7-day, 10-day film.
Yeah.
How much are you going to pay me?"
Okay.
Yeah. Now he goes on stage, spend 30 minutes on stage, and he gets paid X amount of millions.
Okay.
So you say that there's that huge gap between how much an artist gets paid and how much an actor will get paid. So someone like Fowles, depending on where his passion lies, but at the moment I think his passion lies between both balls. So.
Would you say the Nollywood actors are reaching that kind of superstar status? They kind of are already in Nigeria, and in regards to endorsements and receiving other forms of income from the movies, wouldn't that entice certain people?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between stardom or being a superstar and a celebrity.
Okay.
Two different things. But a lot of people look at it as if it's one and the same. It's not.
So, is there film festivals coming up?
Yes, the second edition.
See some of these amazing people.
Yeah. You've got the second edition of the UK Nollywood Film Festival, which will be held the next couple of months.
Where is that going to be?
It's going to be at Odeon Cinema.
Okay.
At the moment, we're looking at getting extra screens to show.
When are we going to hit Leicester Square?
We've had. I mean, I went to Leicester Square to watch. Last time I went there was to go and watch The CEO, which was done by Kunle Afolayan a few years back.
But because you're saying this, it's not like all of movies, it's like a festival. Do you know what I mean? Wouldn't it be nice to? Well,
it would be nice, but funding is very important because funding a film festival in the diaspora is not as easy as funding one in Nigeria. Because when you reach out for sponsorship and media partners, the first question they're going to ask you is, how far is the X amount of pounds I'm dropping on the table? How far is it going to go in terms of reach?
Okay.
So, answering those questions for now, because we're still trying to build. Building a foundation has always been very tough. It's never been easy to try and build a foundation. So it will take a couple of years to build it to be strong enough to be able to now say, okay, this is what the statistics for the last couple of years has been, and this is what we think the reach will be. Before you can now say, okay, I'm stating this is what you can get based on how much you're going to leverage in terms of sponsorship.
Have you seen the sponsorship increase for you guys, even though you're using places like this? There's nothing wrong with it, OGM, but you're putting on the awards.
Well, in Nigeria at the moment, we've had a couple of media partners that have come on board. We've had about 6, 7.
Okay.
Metro FM and some other ones, Genesis Cinema and all that, all coming on board, and it's only going to get better.
Okay.
I don't see a situation where it's going to get worse, because every single year we have a lessons learned log where we look back and say, what did we do wrong last year to make it better?
Improve?
Yeah.
So what would you say, what's your dream collab for the future? What kind of dream collaboration can you see yourself doing?
Well,
either within the Nollywood industry or within Hollywood or Bollywood or wherever. What would your dream collaboration be?
I've always wanted to work with
me, obviously, and
okay. I would love to work with Will Smith.
Okay. Because didn't we see a big American?
He did a true life film.
Okay. I thought was it one of them?
I think it was called Fusion. I think was it Fusion?
I can't remember. I know one of them did.
He did. Yeah, it was. We did one where it was a true life story about a Nigerian who was a doctor.
I know there was one. I can't remember off my head. But
yeah,
I know
very,
there's one.
Very nice film.
Yeah, I know there's one.
Yeah, I think it's called Fusion. If my memory is not playing up on me right now, and that was a fantastic film, where he played a Nigerian doctor who went out of his way to do a lot of research and development on the damage to a human brain based on collision because the NFL is a huge institution, and there was a lot of brain head clashes when you play that game, and he had to prove because there was a lot of side effects to ex-NFL football players who had a lot of psychological traumas.
And no one was really looking into
No one was
so
looking at the trend, and he had to do a lot of autopsy to try and prove beyond reasonable doubt. And the so-called NFL institution tried their best to shut him down and cut him out of the whole thing. And
is it based on the true life?
Yeah, it is. It is based on the Nigerian doctor. Yes. I mean, at the end of the film, the Nigerian doctor had a monologue. At the end of the film, it's a true life story. Hence, one of the reasons why I really appreciated the film, because it painted Nigerians in very good light.
Positive light.
Yes, positive light.
As opposed to what we usually paint.
Yes.
Are you ever going to go from behind the camera to in front of the camera, or have you done that already? Can you ever see yourself?
It's something I've been told to do, and it's something I've done in, I think, 2 of my films. The Three Kings being one of them, because the guy who was supposed to play the inspector, who was supposed to be interrogating an individual, he came to set almost 3 hours late, and by the time he got there, they just said, "Oh, he's done it." I had to do that myself because it was just a couple of lines, and we had lit up the set.
So thrown in the deep end.
Yeah, still pulling the deep end.
How did it feel?
It felt fine.
Could you see yourself at home in front of the camera more? Or you preferred being behind it?
I prefer being behind, but if I'm thrown in front of the deep end to be in front of the camera, it's I mean, just like now. I mean, I'm in front of the camera. Yeah. I'm not shying away from it. So I think both ends of the spectrum, so I could always deliver. And
so in regards to being behind the camera, what do you prefer, or producing or directing, or do you?
Well, I think I'm still harnessing my skills as a director. Okay. I've only done one, and that has made the cinemas on merit in Nigeria already, which is good. My next film, I'm hoping to direct it, but if I can lure 1 or 2 investors and they say, "Mark, we don't want you directing," I'm just gonna stick to producing. I think my producing skills are excellent, but my directing skills can always get better, because as a director, you're always going to get better at what you do. I mean, typical example, I'm very confident if you look at the likes of Spike Lee and you ask him, if you were asked to redirect the first 2-3 films, do you think you can do things better? They're going to say, hell yes.
Yeah.
So
it's a learning curve.
It's a learning curve, yes.
And do you have any mentors you tend to like to work with, or you kind of just like check in and ask to check on you, or just
at the moment I have not
get inspiration from?
I've only worked with myself, and I think I've worked with 1 or 2 other directors at the moment. You'll be amazed. You learn from even a runner on set. So I've always been an individual that's always been open to changes and improvements. I would not say because I'm a director and say it must be my way. No.
Yeah.
Now, if you speak to some actors, they say, "Oh, he's an actor's director." That means he's the kind of director that gives actors a free hand on set. There are certain times that
free hand
meaning that you allow them deliver things
their way.
Okay.
But
if
sometimes
it doesn't work,
get the best out of people that way.
Yeah. I don't want to mention names, but
no.
I have seen actors who actually went on set and had their own specific way of delivering things, and the director didn't necessarily like it.
Okay.
But in post-production, they ended up using that in the final cut of the film.
Okay.
So that's why sometimes you have some films where they categorically mention it and say, this is the director's cut.
Okay.
And the director's cuts and what comes to the audience sometimes can be different, and I'll explain what I mean by that. Because you always have to have the producer's head on and say, what is going to be more commercially appealing
to
the audience, and you cut it to that specification. But you now say, okay, this is the way I would have preferred.
Yeah.
Then you cut it to your own, as a director, if you're the director, that's what you call a director's cut.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what message have you got to anyone watching this, listening to this, that wants to get into your field of work? What could be,
Never let any individual tell you you're not good enough or you can't do it or you're not qualified. I think if you believe in yourself enough, go ahead and do what you believe in.
Anything's possible.
Yeah. I think it's your passion would always overshadow a lot of things. But there's something called passion, and there's something called you either having it or not having it. You could have the passion to act and not have it.
Okay.
And you could have the passion to direct and not know how to direct. You could have the passion to produce and not be able to produce. So you need to be able to determine whether you can or can't. There are a couple of actresses and actors I know personally, one-on-one, who will tell you they have the passion to act, and they just can't deliver.
Okay.
I mean, it's like you trying to tell an individual, "I'll come and do this role," and you're there for like an hour.
And they're not able to.
And yeah, they're not. So you can't tell an individual who doesn't have something to give you something. So you're on set as a director, and you're trying to direct an individual and say, "Do it like this, do it like this." If they don't have it, they don't have it.
So on that note, we're going to have to end. But before we go, I just need you to tell people what motivates you, what inspires you, what empowers you. The purpose of our show.
Well, one thing that motivates me is the fact that I want to leave a legacy.
Okay.
I want to leave a mark.
That's important. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Mark. I want to leave a mark in life.
Yeah.
I want a situation where my legacy lives on after me. And
you want us to be talking about Mark and his production and why not?
Well, look at it this way. I want my film to continue to make money even if I'm dead. So that enough is enough to inspire any individual to create something that will always continue to make money for you. I remember that I was having a conversation with a colleague of mine, and she said, and I quote, "Why do you want to shoot in 4K? I can shoot in a normal DSLR." And I said, "Madam, if you do a film and I do a film, same film, you shoot yours with your DSLR, I shoot mine in 4K. I will sell mine better than you. In the next 20 years, I'll still be able to sell my film at a better value than yours." And that kind of ended the conversation. Because knowledge is power. You either know it or you don't. So, but when you get into an argument and you start arguing and saying, this is what works, you're only limited to your knowledge.
Okay.
And if you don't know it, you don't know it.
Well, thank you. So thank you for coming to hang out with me today. It's been a blast.
Hanging out with Henrietta.